Adian no Tsue is the first educational game that we've got on the Disk System. Don't worry, there aren't a whole lot of these. But every game console needed their educational games. How else would parents know that their kids were getting something out of these video games? And as educational games go, Adian no Tsue is not the worst I've ever seen. It is definitely educational, and there's definitely gameplay. At least there's gameplay on one side of the disc. Adian no Tsue is actually a collection of two educational games. I'm going to start with the one that's less interesting, Step Drill. When you start up the floppy, you're given your choice between Adian no Tsue and Step Drill, which you select with the A and B buttons. Step Drill has you taking part in a marathon across Japan, and to progress in the race, which has no other runners, you just answer math problems. Select the numbers, select OK, and then you move on. Each section has 5 questions, and if you do perfectly on a section, then you're allowed to skip the next one. I stopped after 8, but considering how slow my progress was, it feels like there's probably about 100. You can save your progress, quitting after completing any section. Basically, Step Drill is the boring one on the disc. Adian no Tsue is the game on the disc that stands out. I'd say it looks very similar to another game that we might have seen before, but I can't quite put my finger on which one. Your goal in the game is to climb the 9-story tall Tower of Math and defeat the evil wizard at the top. The way the game works is that the A button swings the staff and the B button uses, nothing actually. Every room has a bunch of monsters in it, but you can mostly ignore them. They just walk around pretty much randomly. You get nothing but points for defeating them, they don't drop anything, they're just in the way. You probably will want to defeat them though, because they do drain your energy. Striking one of the 4 doors in any room with your staff will make a math problem appear. Except when it doesn't, because you are either not quite lined up precisely, or the game decides to just let you through. Opening a door will also often reveal an item behind it. You solve the math problem by striking the numbers on the wall, and then hitting the K symbol, which is at the bottom center. You can also use the arrow symbol to delete a number. Get the problem right, and you can collect the item and possibly use that exit, assuming there's a room on the other side. Get it wrong, and you lose a bit of your currency and have to start again. The items you can collect like this are bells, which are this game's money, apples that restore a bit of your health, or mushrooms that cause you a bit of injury. If you open another door without collecting an item, then the item that was waiting around for you to pick it up vanishes. So that's how you can get away from the mushrooms. Bells can be spent in the shop, which you access by hitting the select button that brings up your status menu. The status menu tells you what floor you're on, how much money you have, your experience, which you only earn by solving math problems, and what weapons and armor you're using. But there's really only 3 icons you can interact with: the Go Back, Store, and Ferry options. At the store, you purchase and immediately use just about anything you need. There aren't any pickups in the game except what you find behind doors. Since you can access the store at any time, it mainly acts as a way to immediately access some power-ups. The stock of the store increases floor by floor, and on the first floor it only has things like healing herbs, an item to make you invincible, and something that will slow the enemies down for a short time. They also have a flute that will let you summon the fairy. Starting on the second floor, you can find equipment in the shop. Shoes that will make you go faster, a replacement staff that will let you have a ranged attack, that kind of thing. Using the flute from the status menu lets you bring out the fairy, who just lets you buy hints. If you were playing in 1986, you'd probably need this because this is one of those games that hides everything. But these days, watch a video on YouTube or something. There are 2 ways that you advance from floor to floor. On all the floors except 3, 6, and 9, you just have to earn enough experience by doing math problems, and then the stairs up will appear in one of the rooms in the maze. Floors 3, 6, and 9 are trickier. You still have to earn enough experience points to progress, and once you've reached that limit, you have to go to the correct room. In any room, if you stand around for about a full minute, some additional Sphinx monsters will appear. They're not really more difficult than anything else, they're just there. If you are in the correct room and these Sphinx monsters appear, and then you defeat them, then a few seconds later a boss monster will appear. And once you defeat them, then you advance to the next floor. There's only one problem with this. The action in Adian no Tsue is awful. I mean, really awful. Hitting things with your attacks is inconsistent, partially due to short range, partially because lining things up precisely is trickier than it should be, partially because the enemies are just random walking around, which doesn't give them a huge range of motion, and partially because you don't have any invincibility frames after you're hit. Come into contact with an enemy and your health just vanishes. These enemies will charge at you if you get into a horizontal plane with them, and because they'll sit on top of you, they tend to be fatal. Your staff can hit enemies through barriers, sometimes, if they're on exactly the right pixel. The combat just winds up being way more annoying than it should be. At least if you die and get a game over, you can continue from the same floor, or save your progress. The strange thing for me about Adian no Tsue is that the math problems provided are actually pretty good choices. Usually in educational games, math problems are just drills. They throw two random numbers at the player, and then have them perform some arithmetic function on them. In Adian no Tsue, the problems vary a lot. You've got some problems that are just those put together two numbers. There's also a lot of problems that are algebra preparation, ones that require that the player think about the process of math. It's the kind of thing that'd be very good to throw at kids who are in the middle of elementary school. The problem is, it's wrapped up in a game that's barely one step above unplayable. There's a tagline on the cover of Adian no Tsue that translates to, "Become smarter when you fall in love with this game." Thing is, I can't find any Japanese players who fell in love with the game. Though I did find a few who were scarred by how unfair the combat was. Educational games are often disliked, and are rarely something that anyone wants to go back to, but Adian no Tsue doesn't even seem to hold nostalgia for people.